is when he tore his Achilles, Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
So he tore his Achilles tendon mid-game, and like as most players, it's a painful injury, big injury. Most players would just lie on the ground and like twirl around and be carried off the field.
Yeah.
What he did is he got up by himself, went to the free throw line, shot 2 free throws, scored both, and then walked himself off with a torn Achilles tendon.
Hey, Dave here from the Breakfast with Manny podcast, which comes from when my co-host Emmanuel, also known as Manny, and I used to meet regularly for breakfast. When we were discussing the shifting landscape of manhood, mostly by sharing our experiences and our struggles, as well as my coaching courses and my entrepreneurial experience, we realized many men could benefit from discussing these topics. So Breakfast with Manny is going to explore the unseen patterns that sabotage men from realizing their potential, healing, and getting the life, sex, career, and health they want, leading to a healthy masculine life. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast with Manny, another episode. Super excited today. As always, here with my co-host Manny and our special guest, Oren. How you doing, Oren?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure.
Happy you're here. For those who don't know, so Oren is a close friend of mine. It's been, I think, I was calculating, but like 15 plus years that we know each other.
Crazy.
So time flies.
We're getting old.
We're getting very old.
Don't even go there.
Yeah. I'm very happy you joined. We have a lot to talk about, like a lot. And for those who don't know, the main kind of topic today is really entrepreneurship and business. But we want to get into masculinity as well. I want to talk also about your experience as a guy.
For sure.
You know, and so I want to start with the basic. Now, of course, you own a company, if not multiple, you know, all of that real estate management and doing as a GC. You have a bunch of cool projects.
Correct.
But I'm curious to start where, like at the beginning, because you and I met in high school.
Yes.
Can you tell us about maybe a vision? Did you already know, like since you were young, that you wanted to do something as an entrepreneur? Did it all start?
So I believe, I mean, there's a lot of different opinions on this, but I believe that entrepreneurship, you kind of have it in you since you're young. Maybe you didn't know what direction you were supposed to go or how, but like deep down inside me, I knew I wanted to have my own business for a long time. It's funny, I actually had a conversation with my uncle not too long ago, and he reminded me that when I was 10 years old or 11 years old, I kept saying, I want to be the president. I want to be the president. Not that I knew what that meant probably at the time, but it was probably more of a way to like be in control or be, you know, doing what I wanted to do. That's probably my vision as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old of being a president. But in high school, I think we even discussed it that I wanted to become a business owner or be a CEO. And the vision, obviously, you know, what that meant changed, but the intention behind it and the goal behind it was always the same.
Do you think it's a you thing? Do you think you got influenced, for example, by your dad, who I believe also owned a business or worked in business at some point? Do you think there was an influence there, or was it just you already knew? So
my dad was never an entrepreneur for his whole life. I mean, he has some entrepreneurial background and he was, you know, managing companies and stuff like that. So it probably had an impact for sure. It's tough to say because I just felt it from a very young age, and I always really was driven towards entrepreneurship and owning my own business. So it's hard to say specifically what, you know, triggered it.
Yeah.
But for sure, your influence, the people you surround yourself with. I have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs, friends that are in business. So for sure, the circle that you're surrounded with, you know, helps, you know, dictate where you're heading as well. So
right. Yeah. You're a hockey player. You're a hockey player as well.
I was.
You were a hockey player.
I was,
technically hockey. But the sports side of things, do you think it played a role also in, I would say maybe the driven or the wanting to compete? Do you think that had an effect there?
For sure, competitiveness. Business is a competitive sport, as everybody who's in it knows. I don't know if you want to get there now, but my initial vision, my initial goal was to always play in the NHL, and unfortunately, that never happened. But the strive to, you know, be the best, to compete, to win, and, you know, score goals, be in control. And I had experience also being a captain or an assistant captain of my teams. The leadership side of it, you know, pulling people out of you know, tough situations, you know, that really translates to me today in what I do. So.
Yeah, you know, I'll jump in. One of the things that we talked about a lot here on Breakfast with Manny, there's so, you know, like if you cheat and win, for example, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a hollow victory, right? You know, or you play a game and you win 15-2. It's kind of a hollow victory. How do you balance like sort of this competitive drive and winning with not getting into winning at all costs, right?
Oof, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a very tough one. I really look at it as it depends when in what scenarios, in what situation. Like now I still play hockey. I'm in a more of a beer league thing, so it's not win at all costs. When I was playing at a higher level and hockey was everything for me, it was like 6 days a week, waking up thinking about it, going to bed thinking about it. Everything I did in my life was hockey, so I was all in at the time. So I'm quite an all in person in most of the things that I do, whether it's, be hockey, whether it be business, whether it be, whatever I try to do, I try to be all in. Yeah. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that question.
It's good though. It's good to just talk about that.
And even in beer league now, when it doesn't really matter, I'm here with the boys, we're here to have fun, and I still treat it like it might be Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals. We're here to win. So it's tough. It's tough to balance, but I think it's an important line to draw sometimes to keep yourself cool. But it's not easy for me. I will be honest.
You had that goal of wanting to make it to the NHL. Then what happened?
So unfortunately, I was playing a pretty high level of hockey. I was, my target, my purpose was to, go to play professional hockey. I had some aspiration to go there. I was meeting with scouts and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I had 3 concussions in the span of 4 years. And I was supposed to be playing a higher level, and we had to sit down with the doctor, and the doctor basically told my parents, not to me because they knew I wouldn't listen, but they told my parents like he should stop. It's 3 and 4 years. Another one could be seriously damaging for the future. So that was a really tough moment for me when I had to realize I couldn't play contact hockey anymore. And of course, hockey is a contact sport. So once you can't play contact anymore, you can't really continue. So that was probably my biggest down in my life. And that was a tough moment.
Can I ask you, how did you handle that? Like, what happened? How'd you handle that?
I was 18 at the time, so I was young, and I didn't probably handle it the best way. At the time I was, super in shape, always eating healthy, never doing anything. And when that news hit, I realized like, okay, it doesn't matter anymore. So I got kind of into weed, and I used to smoke quite a lot of weed at that time. It was in the CJEP days. So right after I got the news that I couldn't play.
Because that happened at the end of high school. And you were
end of high school,
you were starting CJEP.
Correct. So end of high school, and I started to CJEP, and I realized that okay, like maybe I don't have to be as all in into hockey anymore because I'm not going to go to the NHL. So I started smoking weed, and that definitely was a 2-year period of not easy for me. Okay. That was a challenge.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. How much weed did you smoke? Like, how deep did you get?
So it started off as, here at parties at night only, and then it got as bad as like 3-4 times a day before classes.
Crazy how it can just start as sometimes social, and then suddenly
mornings I used to wake up and smoke, and I'm proud to say that I don't smoke at all anymore. I don't think I haven't smoked in over a year now. So now I smoke once in a while, maybe with friends, but very, very rarely. But it was a time where it was 3-4 times a day nonstop. So it was a lot.
And do you think that was really just dealing with the pain of the dash dream, like kind of, or was it something else too? Do you think?
It's tough because at the time I looked at it as, it helped me. My justification to myself was, it's helping me focus. It helps me relax. Okay. I'm a tense guy. I have a bit of ADHD. Smoking before class helped me, focus, and it made me more interesting. So that was like the excuse I told myself. Okay. But looking back on it now, I think it was more of a way to deal with, me feeling like, what's my purpose? What am I doing now? Yeah. My goal of being a hockey player is now gone. Where do I go with this now? So
how did you find your way? Like, how did you find your way after that?
So I still, even despite smoking, I was still reading a lot of business books and listening to podcasts, but I didn't have like the motivation or the drive that maybe I have today. Okay. How did I find it? Well, one funny story actually relates to Manny, and actually to you, which I didn't even know at the time. Yeah. We were in Dawson College at the time, and I think I was probably high when we had this conversation. We were.
Odds are. Yeah.
That's ironic.
Very likely, and Manu actually came back from a Tony Robbins event, and I think you sent him to that event.
I might have recommended it at the time.
No. You sent me to that event. Yeah. So you went to Tony Robbins?
I remember you, and I got a free ticket.
Yeah, you got like the extra VIP, incredible stuff, and you got an extra one. So you gave it to me.
Yeah, that's right.
I flew there, and I think, how old were we? Like 18?
19. I think it was 19.
I went there to that event, and I remember I came back and I was
He
fired the fuck up.
Yeah,
I
he
was so fired up.
Yeah.
Just like, we talked about going to these events and then you come back and you're like, I can just eat the world right now. So I was so fired up. And you and I had a conversation.
So he was so motivated when he got back. I think it was like a day you got back or the day after.
Yeah, it's like
and I'm here sitting there on a chair, like kind of blaze, feeling all relaxed. And Manny was here like, yo, like this is happening. Like we're going to, take over the world. Like this is happening. And like, I still remember that to this day because I think it was a changing point for me because I felt that energy and I liked that energy that you had because that was the energy that I had kind of towards hockey.
Yeah.
And I saw that in you towards business and I knew that I wanted to be in business. I just didn't have the motivation at the time. And that like really flipped the switch in me. And I was like, oh, fuck it. Like, why am I doing this? Like like, why am I feeling sorry for myself? Like, let me make it happen. Like,
yeah. Cause I think you had it in you, like, that power, or
it was in me.
It was in you. It was in you. But
it was suppressed by the weed. And I mean, in high school, we were talking about it. Even, I wanted to be a CEO. We wanted to do big things.
Yeah.
And at that time I wasn't smoking. So the energy was there, but then, things kind of dropped after that. And I'm happy I got to pick it up. So I honestly do believe that part of where I am today is due to you guys. So
that's really cool. I didn't tell you about that story, but it's a really cool story with Oren.
So I do appreciate that.
So back then, so you were smoking, we had a chat, but I remember you were also kind of exploring. You were already starting to get into real estate, I think, at that point. What happened next?
So just as I was kind of fizzling out of that phase, starting to get back on track, I got a job as a leasing agent, which is renting apartments. And I was renting apartments for a building not too far away from downtown there. It was 200 units. And, my job was to just rent apartments. I was 19 years old. And after a couple of months, I ended up being the top leasing agent of the company in Quebec. And I was the youngest guy there. So it gave me a lot of confidence. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm back on track. I can do this. So that was my first step into real estate, first step into business as a whole. And that really made a difference for me. That was like the turning point.
So let me ask you this. So there's a bunch of guys probably watching that are guys and women, but obviously healthy masculinity, we tilt towards men, but so we'll go with the guy thing. A bunch of guys are out there and they're like, man, I'd love to start my own business. I really want to.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to them? Like, what are some of the keys to like making it happen?
So it's tough because for me, and I'll talk a bit about myself, is I always knew I wanted to have my own business, and I still worked for other people in different roles as an employee for about 6 years before I made the leap 100% to be an entrepreneur full time. I was doing side hustles. I did an online business, e-dropship, stuff like that. So I was always doing little stuff, trying to making some side cash, did some Airbnb. So I was always doing things on the side. But why I mention that is that the experience I got during my employment really helps me today. And funny enough, 3 out of the 3 companies that I work for are now 3 of my clients still today.
Cool.
So it helped me get my client base. And even if, they weren't my clients, the people that I met now affect my business. I gained a lot of contacts. So when I quit and then became a full-time entrepreneur, I had kind of a head start than just starting flat and dry, no contacts, no experience, no nothing. I really had experience in the field, and it helped me, take off kind of.
Do you think you were able to differentiate yourself from other people within these companies because of a personality thing? Is it the fact that you were very driven and the owners maybe there starting trusting you? What was the key there?
For sure. And I looked at this as the jobs as a learning experience, as a stepping stone. I knew I was going to be there for 40 years and, just collect a paycheck for the rest of my life. So for me, it was like, how am I going to learn from this opportunity and how can I actually get more? So I remember at 19 when the building manager at the time decided to leave, or I got fired. I can't remember what the story was. I asked, can I be the building manager for the next 2-3 weeks until you guys find someone? And obviously they were like, for sure, we're not going to pay you more, but do more work. Cool. And I took it and I learned, and that small experience, it was about a month, got me my next job, which was as a building manager. So, and when I was there, I did everything possible. I learned the construction side, and like things that maybe I didn't necessarily have to do. I did because I was interested in it. Obviously, if you're not interested, it's tough. But also because I knew that eventually it would be useful for me. So,
in terms of actionable tips, like the going above and beyond. I feel like that's a big one for people who want to
For
start.
sure.
Like
For
that,
sure.
people see. I feel like people see it when you do things that are different.
For sure.
Just the chat we had before, with the kid is talking about things he's already doing now. Is I think these things set people apart from others.
You know what? Yeah.
Just the nine to five. Like I'm gonna start. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with doing 9 to 5 and just doing 9 to 5, and that's fine if that's the balance you need. But if we're talking about building something and wanting to grow that stuff, I feel like there's a side of wanting to do more.
I think even if you want to be an employee and you want to grow in the ranks, you still got to do more. You got to make an impression.
Yeah.
You got to stick out. If you're just gonna come in at 9:01 and leave at 4:59, do the bare minimum, you're never gonna grow. It's like
I was just going to say that too. Sorry to interrupt. I
Yeah.
was going to say that. Like, I think one of the things is you can be entrepreneurial in your job. Like you can be creative. You can bring vision. You can bring leadership. And I think that's one of the biggest things about being an entrepreneur. You have to lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing about being an entrepreneur is self-leadership, right?
Yep.
Because nobody's pushing you to get out of bed.
Correct.
And there's no paycheck if you don't get out of bed.
That's true.
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's one more thing about being an employee and experiencing that. It's what really benefited me is that I made mistakes on other people's dime. So I was an employee. I tried things or I made mistakes, and I still got my paycheck. Even if I made a mistake, I was still gonna get paid. Maybe I got slapped on the wrist by my boss, but I was trying new things. I was trying to do things, and even if it failed, it wouldn't cost me personally money. It would be the business's fault or the owner's paycheck or pocket that was affected by that. So versus now in my own business, if I make a mistake, it comes straight out of my pocket, right? So it's a big difference.
More pressure, yeah.
And now I made the mistakes that I made, and now I'm not making them anymore, and it's helped me in my business to make less mistakes, of course.
Right. I mean, we talked about this also, the switch that you're recently making, but there's a similar story in terms of you also working for a company and then learning, and then after having your project. Just for people who are listening, who want to start something, sometimes I think it's a great way to get experience. It's not the only path to take, but...
Yeah, what I'd add to that is I think a lot of people make the mistake of going black and white. They're like, I'm in my job or I start a company, and you can slowly, like I like what you did, right? Yep. Like, why not be an entrepreneur on a small venture on the side?
Correct.
Learn all those things, and actually, I'll tell you a quick story. As an entrepreneur, you're gonna like this one, and again, I'll be very careful not to expose anybody, but I was recently approached to join into to help a company,
mm-hmm.
and what they wanted me to fundraise for them.
Okay.
So I have to look under the hood, right, before I put my reputation at stake. So I start digging around, and it was like, okay, I'm like, so where's do you have even a short form business plan?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Do you have a partnership agreement? Nope. Are you incorporated? Nope. Do you have a legal representation? Nope. And so they had a great concept, and they're lovely people. Like, they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But they had no foundational stuff, right?
It was an idea, not a business.
It was an idea, not a business. And I think that's so critical. A business is something that is systematized.
I agree.
And to repeat, so, I said to them, they did tell me, like, look, we're hiring you to poke holes in what we're doing. And so I poked. And so at first they weren't very happy, but they were thankful the next day. The first day they weren't happy because I'm like, what you're telling me to do then is, it's
build your
little
business.
deeper than that. It's even deeper. One of the partners had another business and said, by the way, I have no time
mm-hmm.
for this biz. And then she was the one doing the financials, and then the financials were not good.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, but I shouldn't be doing the financials. And then the other partner had no business experience whatsoever. So I said, look, investors look at leadership team,
mm-hmm.
they look at experience. And then the other piece, of course, is how much of your own skin is in the game. How much money have you put in on your own? So basically I said, look, like, you're putting me in the position of, you're asking me to go get investors to say they're not putting any personal money in.
Mm.
They don't have a business plan. The financials are not set. And
well, they're not incorporated also.
So it was, I was like, look, I can't do that, as you know, right? I'm not going to go try to get money in that scenario. But, like, people do this all the time, and they don't learn. Like, take your time. If you have a job and a paycheck, just dedicate an hour a day, a couple hours a day to just learning the entrepreneurial journey. Are there any books in particular you'd recommend, by the way?
So I read a lot of books. We actually shared a few books back and forth. There's different books for different mindsets, and I often chose the book based on like the state of mind that I was in, whether it's pushing more, just trying to structure my own business, whether it was sales that we needed to increase sales. So I always picked based on what I needed at the time. One book that stands out to me, and I think I gave it to you once, is the book Relentless by Tim Grover.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason I really like it is Tim Grover was the personal coach for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
And the book talks about not really his training on the physical side, but more on the mental side.
Okay.
And how much he played a part in how Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant thought of the game, Mamba mentality. He talks a lot about Mamba mentality, and it's just, he calls them closers, cleaners is the top one. Closer, I forget exactly, but there's 3 steps. There's basically someone who's successful, there's great, and then there's icon. What makes the difference between being good, great, and icon? There's a mindset shift on that. Okay. And he was saying that, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan skill-wise were maybe not an icon level because of their skill, they're icon level because of their mentality and how they thought of the game and how they approached it every day.
Yeah.
Isn't there like an iconic interview, I think, in which they ask him like, hey, aren't you so happy that I'm not sure if he's the right player, but you're so happy like you guys are leading the series, and he's like, job's not done.
Job's not done.
Job's
exactly.
not done.
That's part of it. But there was also another anecdote which is quite famous. I don't know if you've known this one. Is when he tore his Achilles, Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
So he tore his Achilles tendon mid-game, and like as most players, it's a painful injury, big injury. Most players would just lie on the ground and like twirl around and be carried off the field.
Yeah.
What he did is he got up by himself, went to the free throw line, shot 2 free throws, scored both, and then walked himself off with a torn Achilles.
Really?
So what he was saying in the book is that the journey to recovery from this injury didn't happen over 6 months. It happened the minute he got the injury. The minute he fell down, he took a minute.
This is wrong.
He took a second. He's like, okay, like job's not finished. So I got to get up. I got to make my shots. I'm going to walk myself off, and it starts. Strong mentality.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great book then to recommend. I like that.
I like that book a lot.
Yeah, let's pivot. So Breakfast with Manny, we talk a lot about healthy masculinity. What we call healthy masculinity is, there's a lot of toxic masculinity talk in the world.
For sure.
About guys, whatever, behaving badly. To you, when I say healthy masculinity, what does that mean to you?
So I thought a lot about it because I knew that this podcast was about that. And to me, I look at it as like healthy person, healthy masculinity, healthy female, whatever it is. I think it's being a net positive to the people that are around you. So whether it's the men, the women, your friends, your family, whoever it is, even to strangers, if you're a person who improves the lives of the people that's around you, whether it's financially, emotionally, you help them whenever they need, you're always there for them, and you put a smile on their face as a whole. Yeah. I think that you're a net positive to this world, and I think it's hard to argue that you're not healthy to your surroundings. I think when people are toxic, when we relate to toxic masculinity, it's more either negative towards women in different ways or degrading them, or 2, it's being telling your guy friends, hey, you're a pussy, or you're soft, or whatever like that. Instead of encouraging them and being like, hey, buddy, like, you're going through a tough time. Like, I'm here to help you, but like, let's go, stand up. Like, you got this. It's being more of a picker-upper than someone who puts people down.
Yeah.
I think that's the toxic aspect to it. That's really how I look at it.
Cool. Yeah,
when you look at people around you and just in general, guys, do you feel like men sometimes feel lost in terms of the role they have kind of now in society? And
yes.
Okay. And how do you see that?
I think, again, my opinion is it's a little unfortunate that there's so much it's not necessarily only from women, it's in general in social media. It's like, oh, independent woman, man needs, and it's fine. Like, I respect any independent woman. I respect people who are, putting themselves out there. It's like almost being a crime now to be a man who provides and is more traditional than it was before, which to me, I don't really understand. I personally am more on the traditional side in my relationship and my life, and I'm very happy with that arrangement, and my girlfriend is too. And I just think that there's too much pressure to change the narrative, and it's like almost a crime now to be traditional, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, there's certainly now kind of, it feels like people are more close to have a discussion, to talk about things, and you said it really well. Like, someone can be ambitious and have women can be independent and have its own business. That's totally fine. I think the issue is telling other people like you shouldn't do that, or that's not your role. And that's, for some reason now people are getting super reactive. Again, social media plays a big role, right? Because you and I talked about it. We did street interviews, bro, and we were talking to people on the street, and we were talking about social media terms. People were saying, listen, we see it on social media a lot, and people sometimes get a lot of too much content there. You get a little bit brainwashed. But in the day-to-day, when you talk to people, typically it's not too bad. People are willing to talk, unless you go to very specific settings in which, groups. Yeah, that's a different thing. But in general, I feel like it's always those extremes that we see online, and
I just feel like some guys are maybe compressed or pushed down because of this pressure now that they see online. It's like, hey, if I become too masculine or too tough or I'm gonna be canceled or something.
We talked about it, but even approaching women, like talking to women now, guys, I'm so scared to even, what if I look like I'm some sort of creep or rapist, like or whatever, or predator, exactly.
We did note, I guess with the advent of Me Too, like a lot of guys became scared to approach women, right? Because like, hey, and a lot of guys want to be with women, and they're like, hey, look at me, I'm a nice guy, and unfortunately, a lot of women eventually they're not attracted to those guys, because those guys are a bit, they're trying to be nice instead of just. I actually don't like the term, or I don't like the idea of being a nice guy. I think a nice guy does it in a fake way. There's a mask there. I think kindness is what I talk about. Like, be kind for sure, but like,
there's that saying, nice guys finish last.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true.
Deep down, I think there's a truth to it. I think it exists for a reason.
I agree.
But I had this conversation with my girlfriend, and at first it's something that triggers, because at first she was like, well, no, it's like, I like someone who's nice. Like, it's not true that, but the reality is, I think there's an attraction level that you can control.
Correct.
And when someone needs to be accepted, when the things that I'm doing is for you to accept me only, there is a sense of reciprocity that is not as strong as a hey, this is me. Of course, I'm open to change and becoming better.
Yeah.
But I'm not like I'm something. I'm someone. I'm not just this little boat that's
here we go. Like, this is the key. Like, you just nailed it. Like, you did it with your emotion. But like, a man who's centered, like a guy who goes, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm moving forward. We're getting into another topic, which I don't think we'll get into today, but we'll get at one time, which is the whole alpha guy thing, right? But there is something to be said around a guy who is moving forward with his life and isn't wrapped up in just pleasing his woman or his friends, right? Quick story, like, I'll give you an example. I got a buddy who was trying to set up a camping trip with his buddy, and his buddy kept moving the date around. He's like, oh, maybe Tuesday. And he goes, oh, my wife she won't let me. And then, oh, maybe Wednesday. And then my friend, a man-to-man interaction, he was driving him nuts. He goes, this fucking guy doesn't stand for anything. This guy has no integrity. And so, like, like we want to move forward. And I'll add something, a bit of a rant, but I'll give you an example of integrity that I think I spoke to with the woman I'm dating recently. We were chatting, and I said, she said, like, what do you want to teach men when you coach them? What do you want to work on? I go, I want men to understand, like, who they are, see their patterns, but also be in integrity. And I said to her, like, integrity might be, hey, by the way, I'm sleeping around like crazy. I want to have sex with a lot of women, but just being upfront about it. Just being completely, sorry, I got to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Being completely upfront, like, go, look, I'm not into committed relationship. I'm into sex. I'm a very sexual being. And she was like, yeah, if a guy would just tell me that, I wouldn't want that. But at least he's being in integrity with himself and being honest. Yeah. Nice guys in general, right? They say what they think the woman wants to hear. And that causes all kinds of shit.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like you're pushing the problem down the line. 100%. Eventually, so right now you're answering what you want to hear, what you want to hear, and once it's
going to bite back eventually.
Once it hits, it explodes.
Yeah, so.
I wanted to shift to talk a bit about relationships because I know you for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think before it's normal. We're young guys, but being knowing that you wanted to be in a relationship was something for you that was difficult, I think, for a long time. So I want to learn. Now you have a girlfriend.
Yes.
It's been
It's about a year.
About
now.
a year.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about how that shift happened and how's the new life now in a relationship?
So it's funny because when I met her, I told her I had a plan, and my plan, I always had a vision, a plan, and it was a 30, I'll settle down. When I turn 30, I'm 27 right now. When I'm 30, I'll settle down, and then I'll start, looking at something more serious. When I met her, obviously she was different. She was, amazing girl that really took me over, and it made me kind of change my mind. It took me a while actually to commit to her 100%. It was about 4 or 5 months we were seeing each other, and before I said, okay, fine, this is the one, and this is the one I'm going to settle for. Okay. But it took a while. So the benefit, you were talking about the benefits, or
yeah, but and also where were you maybe scared, or where were your hesitations? Because I know we had discussions also about being driven and sometimes not wanting to have distractions.
So my biggest fear about a relationship was the distraction towards my business. Okay. So one of the reasons why I had 30 as a year, as a timeline, was because between the ages of 25 and 30, I'd grind on my business, get to a point where I'm happy in my business, and then I can maybe take my foot off the gas and focus on a relationship. And I think that perspective wasn't necessarily true, because when I found my girlfriend's name is Kayla. When I found Kayla, she actually added to my success in different ways. Whether it was taking care of the house, so I had less things to do. Whether it was helping with the food, being there as a support system, those things actually added to my time and made my time more valuable and supported me. And I felt I had more time actually to focus on my business. And even though you have to dedicate date night, you have to instead of working till 9 p.m. you have to come home a little earlier, and you have other people to think about except for yourself. So that was a transition. But overall, it was a net positive for me.
Net positive still.
So I'm happy that.
I think a lot of guys make that assumption. They're just like, oh, I just don't have time for a relationship, right? And the other thing about a relationship that's awesome is relationships. We rub up against other people, we grow. It really helps you grow. And as someone who was single for quite a while, I know I kind of was telling myself the bullshit of I like being alone. I like doing my own thing. Mm-hmm. I'm changing careers and all that. And having met somebody recently and already having some real benefits of some incredibly heartfelt talks, I'm like, oh yeah, relationship's pretty cool actually. It doesn't take away. And a lot of us have that myth. You said it.
It's a myth.
Wasn't right. It's a myth.
And it's also, I realized that being single was actually a huge distraction as well, because then I'm on the app swiping all the time. I'm texting different girls, 5 girls at a time, going on different dates. It's all this time that you're spending is actually a job. It's a full-time job.
So the work that you can put in your relationship definitely provides a lot of dividends
for sure.
Versus all distractions of the
for sure. And at least when you put it in a relationship, it's coming back to you as well. Obviously, a healthy relationship, there's benefits both ways.
For sure.
And when you're on you're on a date to try to get some action, it's not necessarily that. It's just going out trying to convince her to come back, and then everybody's going home a little more satisfied, but still upset with their situation. No one's really truly satisfied. It's not fulfilling. That's the word.
There's a little.
That
bit
was
of
the word. You're not fulfilled.
You're not fulfilled.
That's a good. That's the right word.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I've seen that for sure.
Did you have the talk with her at the beginning in terms of the roles? When did you guys start talking about let's?
It was quite early. Yeah. Which it was more what is your vision of a relationship, or what is your vision of the future, and how do you perceive things? And we were quite aligned on that, obviously, given that we committed to each other. But it was definitely a transition for me. But like I said, it ended up for the best for sure.
Yeah.
I want to pivot a bit, actually, into one of my favorite topics as the father of young men, as a couple of young men. So one of the things we see a lot of is, I'd be interested in your take on this. There's a lot of social media around, made 20 million on YouTube overnight kind of shit, right? Well, shit or not, some of it's true. I shouldn't say that.
But I think a lot smaller percentage. I'm sure that it's out there, but much smaller. I think than
a lot of young men have this somewhat myth, that they're going to make it big on YouTube, make 30 mil by the time they're 30, and they're good. What would you say to them?
So it's funny. We talked about this a few times, I think, in the past, and for me, I felt trapped to not necessarily the YouTube one, but it's really especially when you're watching a lot of business videos on YouTube or business stuff or motivational stuff, you're targeted by these different posts. And I go to my Instagram and you see all these 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds driving Lambos and flashing cash. Hey, I made $1 million last week. Follow me. Like those kind of guys. And as much as you tell yourself sometimes, oh, it's all bullshit, it's all fake, it gets to you. It's like, why is this guy who's 18, 20, whatever, driving a Lambo, making $1 million in a week? Even though it's probably a little far-fetched, it still gets to you. Yep. So my honest thing and how I dealt with it is, first of all, as I stay true to, like, if you look at it in a today perspective, if I look at right now, okay, am I maybe not driving a Lambo or not in that situation? Fine. But if you pull yourself out and you look over a 10-year period, over a 20-year period, in a 20-year period, do I think that, the actions I'm taking today, the business that I'm building today, is that going to supersede and, increase in value more than what these guys are doing? For sure. So it gives you that initial internal confidence that over time you're going to surpass. And also, I think really important is not to fall for it as much. And if you're putting in the work every day, if you're happy with the effort that you're putting, which needs to be, it's not, if you're working 8 hours a day, it might not be enough. But if you're working 12, which what I was doing, I was working 12 hours a day and I'm not driving a Lambo, and I'm like, this guy's on a Lambo and he says he works 1 hour a week. What the fuck is going on? Right. Just know that if you're putting in the hours, you're doing what you need to do, it's going to come to you. And it's very important to shut out the noise, because there's a lot of noise, whether it comes from your friends, online, even your parents, family. There's a lot of noise. And for me, like, I'll give an example about my mother. My mother obviously wants the best for me. She loves me. She really always wants me to be successful. But there was a time, especially at the beginning of my business, Oren, you're working too hard. Oren, like, maybe take a break. Oren, like, I'm worried about you. Like, maybe slow down a bit. Like, come over, like, relax, And as much as I know that's come from a good place, she wants me to relax. She wants me to, benefit. But it wasn't the right move for me. And I understood, because my vision was very clear and I knew what I needed to do. And you need to shut off the noise, whether it's from anywhere. It's really important to stay focused on your goals and on the direction that you want to go.
Cool stuff. Did you, looking into perspective now, the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, which is when I think you started to build more your entrepreneurship side of things.
Yeah.
Any challenges or issues that you wish, or things you wish you would have done different?
So one flagrant thing which we're actually fixing in the business right now. So I have a business partner named Luke, which you know very well.
Yep.
Me and him were quite scattered. We do a lot of different things. We do property management. We do construction. He has a call center. We were doing investments together. We were doing services. We were doing a moving company. We had so many different things going on that eventually it kind of like distracted us from the true goal. The true goal for us is to buy a shit ton of real estate and, become large players in the game. And because we were doing all these side little stuff, which were making us money. So like the tough part for us was that all these ventures were successful. We're making money on the side, but it's hard to tell yourself when you're making money that, hey, I'm doing the wrong thing. We need to stop doing these side things, focus on what we both want long-term, which is to be large scale, investors in the space, and just, stay focused. So it's not a regret, because I learned a lot from those little side ventures, but it's more of a, stay focused. If you have one goal, if you have one target, try not to get attracted to the shiny object, make a quick few grand here. It's, there's a lot of distraction that can come.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. As we're winding down, we're getting to time soon, but I have a big question for you.
Yeah.
It is easy to get distracted with thinking the Lambo is success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have my own views on it. I'll share, and you can share yours too. But what's your view of what is success?
So success is what makes you happy. And Lambos or materialistic stuff, like I like those things, but to me they're more of a significance of improving. So when you get a nicer car or a nicer house or a nicer watch or a nicer whatever it is, it's just like, okay, I'm progressing in my journey. But it's not like I wake up, please, like all I want is a car and I'm going to be happy. It's not. My long-term vision is to provide for everybody around me, for my family, for my friends, be a net positive to everybody, make a difference. That's what pulls me forward. But those little materialistic things on the way
are milestones.
Are fun. It's a milestone. It's more of a milestone to me, and it's a testament to like, okay, hard work. And unfortunately, business, people look at those kind of stuff. Unfortunately, they look at the, what you're wearing, they look at what you drive. And it's, even though I'm not saying that's, you need to drive a nice car to be successful in business, absolutely not. But people, it kind of helps you when you show up to a meeting, you're in a nice car, you're dressed nice. People automatically have a different impression on you. But like I said, if materialistic things don't drive you, you need to find what does and shut off the noise. It's again, shut off the noise. There's so much noise out there. Stay focused. Know yourself. Know what you want, and the rest doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Do you think there's quick question here, but do you think there's things about the real estate industry that are still a little bit antiquated?
For sure.
In terms of like processes or the way they...
So most of the owners, the large owners, are old guys, still doing things on Excel, still doing things on paper. A lot of construction guys give me receipts on a little notepad. I'm just like, so a lot of that is now changing slowly as these people retire and new people come in. But that's definitely done the old school way for sure still.
Cool. Do you have any other questions or no?
One more.
One more. Okay.
You go first.
A message to young people out there who have a dream of having their own business. What would you tell them?
It's not easy, but it's if you really want it, if you want it inside you and you believe that that's something that you want to do for real, you should go for it. Don't do it because it's cool. Don't do it because you can put entrepreneurship in your little Instagram bio or whatnot.
LinkedIn.
Or in LinkedIn. It's not as flashy as it seems. It's really tough when the payroll is due or when things go down and everything's on your shoulders and you need to make the payments and you need to make the decisions when things are tough. It's not easy. So make sure it's something that you want to do. And if you want to do it, it's the most rewarding thing. But you really need to truly want it and not do it for others. Do it for yourself. That's my message.
Cool shit.
That was my question.
That was your question? Really?
You guys are in sync. I love it.
Sync, yeah.
Brother, thanks so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, guys. It was
thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much for joining us. And I think, Breakfast with Manny, we weave in and out of, we've certainly talked to more spiritual people. We talk to people that are more in business. We're all these things are, I go back to some of the stuff we've looked at about men aren't in a box anymore, right? Like this is all, it's all fluid and it's all our own to create, so super appreciate you being here. Thanks to everybody. Thanks, Manny. And don't forget to subscribe, everybody. We want to keep rolling and subscriptions help a lot. Oren, thanks, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a
Thanks,
pleasure.
brother.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we're out. Thanks, everybody.